Hoy estudiamos el vocabulario en lección 1 de tu libro Portales. Bien. Primero hablamos de los saludos. Repiten, saludos. Saludos significa greetings. Repiten, clase, hola. Buenos días. Buenas tardes. Buenas noches. Bien, a couple of things that I want to mention about these saludos or greetings is that these phrases can all be used both as a greeting and as a response. So, for example, if someone said to you, hola, you can also respond with hola. Or if someone said buenos dias, you can respond with buenos dias. A question that students often have is, when do I stop saying buenas tardes and when do I start saying buenas noches? Well, that's really up to you. So time is relative. If it feels like evening to you, say buenas noches. If it feels like afternoon still, say buenas tardes. There's not a specific cutoff time when tardes ends and noches begins. In many places in the Spanish-speaking world, speakers will often say buenas noches once the sun has gone down. But again, that's up to you. So you can use either one depending on if it's afternoon or evening to you. Bien, ahora estudiamos despedidas. Repiten, despedidas. Despedidas are goodbyes or farewells. So this is vocabulario that we use whenever we are saying goodbye to someone. Repiten, adiós. Nos vemos. Hasta luego. Hasta pronto. Hasta mañana. Saludos a... Ciao. Bien, one thing that I want to mention about adios is we use adios when we're not going to be seeing the person for a long period of time. So if, let's say, you're saying goodbye to your friend and maybe you're going to see them tomorrow, you're probably not going to use adios. You might use a phrase like hasta luego, hasta mañana. Adios is more of a permanent or a goodbye for a longer period of time. A note about hasta luego, hasta pronto, hasta mañana. Remember that even though they start with the letter H is silent in Spanish. So we write the letter H, but we do not ever pronounce the letter H. So we say hasta and not hasta. Okay? Bien, if you wanted to say something, let's say you're talking to your friend and you say hello to your mother for me, you could say saludos a tu madre, greetings to your mom, which would be something in English like say hi to your mom for me. So saludos a is a way that you can say that in español. Bien, ahora estudiamos expresiones de cortesía. Repiten, expresiones de cortesía. Muy bien. Expresiones de cortesía significa courtesy expressions. Repiten, con permiso. De nada. Lo siento. Gracias. Muchas gracias. No hay de qué. Perdón. Por favor. Muy bien. So, if you are wondering perhaps when to use lo siento and when to use perdón, let's think of an everyday situation. So, let's say you're in the grocery store and you need to get some pasta sauce off of the shelf, and there's someone standing in front of you. You could say perdón, and that would mean like, excuse me, pardon me. But let's say that you accidentally knock over their grocery cart when you're trying to get the pasta sauce. That's when you would say lo siento. ¿Sí? Bien. And another note on no hay de qué. Remember that H's are silent, so we wouldn't say no hay de qué. We say no hay de qué. Muy bien. Ok, ahora hablamos de frases y preguntas comunes. Repiten frases y preguntas comunes. Frases y preguntas comunes significa common phrases and expressions. Bien. Ok, repiten, ¿cómo está usted? ¿Cómo estás tú? ¿Y usted? ¿Y tú? ¿Qué hay de nuevo? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué tal? Bien, gracias. Muy bien, gracias. Nada. No muy bien. Regular. Ok. Muy bien. Ahora, you'll notice here in the middle at the top, it says, how are you? And there are two ways that we can ask this question in Spanish. And this is going to come down to whether it's a formal situation or an informal situation. In Spanish, and in English, formal situations are situations that are more serious. They might involve people that you don't know very well, you've never met before. It can also be when you're speaking to someone who is your superior, as far as maybe a boss, a teacher, things like that. Or situations where you're trying to show extra respect. So, in those types of situations, to say, how are you, we're going to say, ¿Cómo está usted? And you'll see that usted is underlined. Usted means you, and if you look to the right, tú is underlined. Tú also means you. But again, even though they both mean you, we're going to use usted when we are in a more formal situation, when we're trying to show more respect. Now, let's say that we're in a more relaxed situation, more casual. We're talking with our friends. I'm probably not going to say ¿Cómo está usted? Because that's kind of formal. And it's not that we don't want to show respect to our friends. But if we're in an informal setting, we could say ¿Cómo estás? Tú. ¿Cómo estás? So tú and usted both mean you, but we're going to use usted in formal situations and tú in informal situations. So if someone says, ¿Cómo está usted? If you look at the bottom, these are all some possible responses. So I could say, muy bien, gracias. Very well, thanks. If I wanted to ask them how they are, and you, I have two options. I can say, ¿Y usted? And I can also say, ¿Y tú? And again, this comes down to the situation and the person that I'm speaking with. So if I'm trying to show more respect, or if someone's older than me, or perhaps I've never met them before, I might err on the side of caution and use the formal way of saying you. And if I'm just talking to maybe my best friend, I would just say, ¿Y tú? Bien. So on the right in the orange, you'll see we have a couple other expressions to ask someone how they are doing. These are going to be more informal phrases, so friends, family, people that we're really familiar with. So, ¿Qué hay de nuevo? means what's new. It literally means what is there of new, but we don't translate literally. We find the best way possible to say it in the other language. So the meaning of ¿qué hay de nuevo? Is what's new. ¿Qué pasa? Means what's up or how's it going. And ¿qué tal? Is how's it going. So if I said, ¿qué hay de nuevo? What's new? A possible answer, if you look down at the bottom, could be nada, which means nothing. If I say, ¿cómo estás tú? How are you? I could say, no muy bien. I'm not very well. No muy bien. Not very well. If I said, ¿qué tal? How's it going? I could say regular, or okay, or bien, gracias. Ahora hablamos de los títulos, titles. Repiten, títulos. Muy bien. Repiten, señor, don, señora, doña, señorita. You'll notice in the parentheses that I have the abbreviations. If you see SR, SRA, or SRTA, these are just abbreviated forms of señor, señora, and señorita. Now, sometimes students ask, when do you use señora and when do you use señorita? It's not always connected to marital status. A lot of times you'll hear that if someone's married, you always use señora, and if someone's single, you always use señorita. But it's not always the case. It can also be influenced by age. So for example, a 25-year-old who's married would probably be perfectly happy being called señorita. On the other hand, a young woman might that is called señora in some formal contexts when a speaker is trying to express politeness wouldn't feel offended because señora doesn't imply that you look old or I'm just assuming that you're married. It's also just a way of saying I'm trying to be polite and show more respect. If in doubt, a general rule is to use señorita if someone is younger than 35 and señora when they're older than that. But just use your best judgment. You can use señorita for unmarried women and señora for married women or older women, or when you're trying to show respect and politeness. But it does come down to your judgment. Ahora hablamos del vocabulario de presentaciones. Repiten, presentaciones. Ok. Repiten, ¿cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo te llamas tú? ¿Y usted? ¿Y tú? Le presento a. Te presento a. Me llamo. Soy. Mi nombre es. Mucho gusto. El gusto es mío. Encantada. Igualmente. Bien. So you'll see that we have, up at the top, we have categories divided into formal and informal. So again, it's going to determine who you're speaking with, whether you're going to use the formal way of asking someone what their name is, or the informal way of asking them what their name is. So, ¿cómo se llama usted? Is what do you call yourself? Literally, that's what it means. But in English, we would say, what's your name? ¿Cómo se llama usted? Now, if we're in an informal situation, talking to someone, maybe a friend of a friend, at a party, something like that, we could say, ¿Cómo te llamas tú? Literally asking, how do you call yourself? But again, we don't translate literally, we find the best way possible. And in English, we would say, what's your name? So, ¿cómo se llama usted? And ¿cómo te llamas tú? are both ways of saying, what's your name? We're going to use usted when we're in a more formal situation and tú in an informal situation. And again, we have y usted, y tú, and you, both meaning and you, but one's formal and one's informal. The third line, le presento a and te presento a, are ways that we can introduce someone to another person. So, for example, let's say I'm in a business meeting and I want to introduce my business associate. I could say, le presento a Don Carlos. So, I would like to present to you Don Carlos. And if, let's say, I'm at a party and I'm introducing my friend to another friend, I could say, te presento a Manuela. I'd like to present Manuela. So again, these are going to determine whether, based on the situation, whether you're going to use le presento a, so more formal situation, or te presento a, more informal situation, when you want to introduce someone to someone else. Okay, down at the bottom, in red, we see me llamo, soy, mi nombre es. These are all ways of telling someone what our name is. The literal translation does imply something different, but they're all ways that we can tell someone what our name is. So I can say, me llamo Jessica. I call myself Jessica. In English, I would say, my name is Jessica. Soy Jessica. I am Jessica. It also implies, my name is Jessica. Mi nombre es Jessica. The literal translation of, my name is Jessica. So any one of these is perfectly acceptable. There's not one that's more common than the other. On the bottom, we have mucho gusto, nice to meet you. And el gusto es mío, the pleasure is mine. Encantado or encantada. Now, for encantado, you're going to say encantado, ending with an O if you are a male, and encantada with an A on the end if you are a female. So it's not based on who you're talking to, it's based on yourself. So since I'm a female, I would say encantada. And let's say someone tells you mucho gusto. You could say igualmente, same here. Igualmente means same here. Ahora hablamos del origen. Repiten, origen. Origin. Repiten, clase. ¿De dónde es usted? ¿De dónde eres tú? Soy de... ¿De dónde es? Él es de... Ella es de... Muy bien. So, ¿de dónde es usted? Y ¿de dónde eres tú? Are both ways of saying where are you from? Can you guess which one is used in a formal situation? If you guessed usted, you're absolutely correct. So if we're in a more formal situation or we're trying to show more respect, we're going to say, ¿de dónde es usted? So we're going to use the usted form. But if we're talking in a more informal context and we want to say, where are you from? We can say, ¿de dónde eres tú? Again, they both mean the same thing. It's just going to depend on the context, the situation, whether we're going to use usted or tú. If you want to respond to this question, you simply say, soy de, and then fill in the blank where you're from. Remember that soy means I am. It always means I am. And de means of or from. So I am from, soy de Mexico. I am from Mexico. If we want to ask where someone else is from, we could say, ¿de dónde es Gabriela? Where is Gabriela from? And someone could respond to me by saying, ella es de Brasil. She is from Brazil. If I wanted to ask where my friend Mario is from, I could say, ¿De dónde es Mario? And someone could say to me, Él es de México. He is from Mexico. Ahora hablamos de sustantivos. Repiten, sustantivos. Ok, repiten el vocabulario, por favor. El autobús. El chico. La chica. La comunidad. La conversación. El cuaderno. El diario. La escuela. El estudiante. La estudiante. El hombre. El lápiz. La lección. La mano. La mujer. El número. La palabra. El problema. El programa. El chico. La computadora. El conductor. La conductora. La cosa. El día. El diccionario. El video. La foto. El joven. La joven. El turista. La turista. La maleta. El mapa. La nacionalidad. El país. El pasajero. La pasajera. El profesor. La profesora. Bien. Now what I want you to do is pause the video and I want you to read through each vocabulary word, saying it out loud again, and I want you to see if you know what each word means. So I want you to check your comprehension. You don't have to write it down, you can if you'd like, but I want you to say each word out loud again, and then I want you to make sure that you know what the word means. If you are unsure what any of the vocabulary words mean, you can look them up in your book. But I do want you to check your comprehension and practice your pronunciation. So pause this video and then hit play again once you have finished that task. Ok, ahora hablamos de los verbos. Repiten, verbos. Verbos significa verbs. In this lesson, you've learned two verbs. The first verb that you learned is the verb ser. Repiten, ser. Ser significa to be. So, remember that we change or conjugate verbs in order to tell us who is doing the action of the verb. In this case, the action is to be. So if I want to say I am, I have to change the verb ser in order to reflect that I am the one being. So, to say I am, we say soy. If you are, so we're saying that you are the subject of the verb, we're going to conjugate it to eres. He or she is, so the word for is in Spanish is es. Now, we see that it says usted is. So remember, there are two ways to say you in Spanish. We can say usted and tú. If we are talking in an informal situation and I want to say you are, I say eres, which means you are. If we're talking in a more formal context and I want to say you are, I say usted es. So we change the conjugation to reflect that situation, whether it's formal or informal as well. If we want to say we are, we say somos. You all, so a group of you in Spain, we're going to say sois. Now, this is called the vosotros form, and vosotros is only used in Spain, and it's used when you're talking to a group of people. So if our class was in Spain, let's say that we pick up our class and we take it and drop it in Spain right now, and I was talking to the group of you, I could say, sois mis estudiantes. You all are my students. So I'm talking to you, but a group of you, more than one you. So I would say sois if I were in Spain. If I want to say they are, so let's say there's a group of guys that are my students, I could say ellos son mis estudiantes. They are my students. Son mis estudiantes. If someone was asking me who these girls were sitting next to me, I could say son mis amigas. They are my friends. Son mis amigas. So they are is son. Now, we talked about you all are in Spain, so a group of you being sois. If you're not in Spain, though, you still need to know how to say you all are, because there are many situations where we're talking to a group of people. To say you all are everywhere else, so Latin America, we say son. So if I'm talking to you right now who are listening to this, all of my students, I would say son mis estudiantes. You all are my students. Okay, let's talk about the other verb that you learned. This word is a conjugation of the verb haber, which is a really irregular verb. The only conjugation of that verb that you need to know is I. Repiten, I. Now, it does look like the word hey in English, but we don't pronounce the H. So it's pronounced I in Spanish. And I means there is or there are. So it means both of those things, and based on the context, you would know if it's trying to say there is or if it's trying to say there are. So let's take a look at a couple examples. The first example, hay un mapa en la clase. There is a map in the class. Hay un chico en el autobús. There is a guy on the bus. Hay 20 estudiantes en la clase de español. There are 20 students in the Spanish class. Hay hombres y mujeres en la comunidad. There are men and women in the community. So again, ser means to be, and I means there is or there are. Muy bien, clase. Si necesitan repetir el video, ¿sí? Pueden ver el video otra vez. Si necesitan ayuda, if you need help, ¿sí? Just let me know, and I am here for you to help in any way that I can. Gracias, clase. Hasta luego.